Okay, so lots to talk about. I want to finish up talking about vitamin K so we can move on to our next bone-building nutrient. And this is a really important nutrient. We'll probably start doing that but maybe on our next Bright Side episode. I've got a few more things, a few more loose ends that I want to tie up about vitamin K. I want to tell you how you can use vitamin K, how you can get vitamin K into your system. Let's see. Well, the first thing you want to know about vitamin K is that there's two main types of vitamin K. One type is made by vegetation, plants. The other type is made by bacteria. There's actually three types of vitamin K, K1, K2, and K3. We're not going to really talk about K3. K3 is a synthetic drug version of vitamin K. Unlike K1 and K2, there is some toxicity associated with vitamin K3. So we're going to set that one aside. So just so you know, there's a K1, K2, and K3. We're not really going to talk about K3. K1 is your plant version of vitamin K, and then the other version of vitamin K, vitamin K2, is made by bacteria, especially bacteria that live in the intestines. Vitamin K1 was the first vitamin K that was discovered. Vitamin K1 is technically called phyloquinone. That's the technical name. We just call it vitamin K1. That was the original vitamin K. That was the one, if you recall, we told the story about sweet clover and the discovery of vitamin K back in the 1940s. That was the one that was first discovered, vitamin K1. This form of vitamin K is much less potent than vitamin K2. It's involved in converting solar energy into physical energy and what we call photosynthesis, which is the single most, in my opinion anyway, the single most incredible chemical process on the planet. It's how plants turn the sun into matter, how plants take solar energy and turn it into physical stuff. And vitamin K1 is a major player in the process. It's involved in vitamin K1 is involved in converting photonic or solar or sun energy into physical energy. And the best sources are going to be leaves. Eat leaves. Leaves in general are a wonderful source of nutrition, as are grasses, which can be kind of thought of as a type of leaf. And certain algae can also make vitamin K1. Anything that grows in contact with the sun is going to provide us with electrical energy nutrients like vitamin K. And this is very important to recognize. I remember when I was growing up, my dad would always say that grass and lettuce and vegetables, they were rabbit food. And he would be kind of derisive about it. He'd kind of make fun of people who ate a lot of vegetation. Well, it turns out that the biggest animals in the world eat rabbit food. Gorillas and elephants and cows. They're chewing on grass all day, and that's because grass is a powerful, powerful source of nutrients, including nutrients like electrical nutrients like vitamin K1. You'll also find vitamin K1 in dairy, but you want the dairy to be grass-fed because vitamin K1 comes from the grass. There's going to always be a little bit of vitamin K in dairy, but you especially want to be looking for grass-fed if you can find it these days. Breast milk, human breast milk is going to have a little bit of K1 also. Oils are going to give you some K1. Olive oil is a relatively good source of vitamin K1. Soybean oil is also a relatively good source of vitamin K1. Of course, we know all the problems associated with soybeans. So if you're going to get your K1 from oils, olive oil is probably going to be your best source. Because of vitamin K1's relationship to photosynthesis and chlorophyll, which is also involved in photosynthesis, you can always tell that you're getting vitamin K1 in vegetation by the color green. Green is actually reflective of the mineral magnesium, but because vitamin K1 is also involved in photosynthesis, as is chlorophyll, wherever you see green, you're probably going to have K1, and the greener the leaves, the greener the vegetation, typically the more vitamin K. Kale, which is super green, it's so green it's almost purple. Kale is the all-time champion of vitamin K1 containing plants. Cruciferous vegetables in general are going to get you some vitamin K1. Brussels sprouts, spinach, cauliflower, cabbage, these are all good sources of vitamin K1. Spinach is a little tricky because there's stuff in spinach that kind of makes it difficult for the body to access vitamin K1. So it's not the best source of vitamin K1, even though there is quite a bit, relatively a lot of vitamin K1 in spinach. In fact, it's possible that all the good sources of plant vitamin K can contain these factors that impede its absorption, and that is why you don't want to rely, in my opinion, anyway, on vegetable sources for your vitamin K. Additionally, vitamin K that comes from plants is far, far, far less potent than the vitamin K that comes from bacteria or that's found in organ meat or dairy. We'll talk about that here in a second. If you are planning on using vegetables to get your vitamin K, it would probably be a good idea to steam your veggies or slightly roast them in a pan with some coconut oil or butter. This helps release the vitamin K. It also helps release the vitamin A and the carotenes and all the fatty nutrients. It's always a good idea to mix your vegetation, your vegetables, your greens with oil and to heat them ever so slightly. This is especially important if you're dealing with gallbladder problems, liver problems, fat malabsorption issues. In my opinion, fat malabsorption is one of the hidden crises that we confront in this country, and it's associated with all kinds of issues involving growth and repair. Just another reason why you want to keep your gallbladder, which is one of the most significant structures in the body that's associated with fat absorption. If you got a problem with the gallbladder, if you have your gallbladder removed, if you have liver problems, if you have pancreas problems, if you have any digestive problems at all, it really is a good idea to make sure your body can access these fatty nutrients from vegetables, especially as we get older. For women, these fatty nutrients tend to deposit in the skin where they serve to protect us from the sun and to keep our skin from wrinkling. Vitamin K, by the way, has some really, really interesting anti-wrinkle properties. Just for cosmetic reasons, it's a good idea to make sure that you're getting enough vitamin K. Vitamin K1 has a primary function in the body, and that is to clot the blood. This is very interesting because for a long time, doctors thought that the only thing that vitamin K did was clot the blood because they didn't know about vitamin K2, which is the most recently discovered of all the vitamins, vitamin K2. Hang tight, we'll finish this up when we come back from our break. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side on the Genesis Communication Network. We'll be back right after this. Okay, so vitamin K1, it used to be thought that vitamin K was just a clotting vitamin because all they really knew about was vitamin K1. And then they discovered vitamin K2. And vitamin K2, man, that is the stuff. Vitamin K1's primary role in the body is to clot the blood. It's primarily a liver vitamin. And vitamin K1 can help you a little bit with your bones and with calcification, the accumulation of calcium in the elastic tissue of the body, the accumulation of calcium in various soft tissues of the body. But vitamin K2, now that is the stuff. Vitamin K2 is far more potent than vitamin K1. Vitamin K2 is made by bacteria and algae. They used to tell us in pharmacy school, don't worry about vitamin K because bacteria can make vitamin K in the gut. As it turns out, that may not necessarily be completely accurate. Recent research is indicating that even though our digestive bacteria or probiotic bacteria that live in the gut can make vitamin K2, we may not be able to absorb the vitamin K2 that these bacteria make. So, in my humble opinion, it's a darn good idea to make sure you're supplementing with this stuff, considering it is non-toxic. So you got vitamin K1, that's a liver vitamin. It's found in plants. It's far less potent than vitamin K2, which is involved in all the good stuff that we've been talking about, vitamin K, all the good stuff that vitamin K does that we've been talking about here for the last couple of weeks. As you'll recall, vitamin K is involved in helping protect from cancer. It's involved in helping protect nerve cells. It's involved in, recently, actually, it's been shown that autism, there may be some connection between vitamin K2 and protection from autism. All of the good stuff that we talked about that vitamin K does is really associated with vitamin K2. Now, if you want a little bit more biochemical confusion, you might want to know that vitamin K2 has subfractions called MK7 and MK4 and MK9 and MK11. MK refers to menaquinone. Menaquinone is the technical name for vitamin K2, but we're not going to really get into that. But just so you know, if you ever hear the term MK7, MK4, MK9, MK11, these are subfractions of vitamin K2. The really good stuff is called MK7, and that's the stuff that you want, and we'll just leave it at that for now. As far as foods go, you're going to get vitamin K2 in its various MK forms in liver, in organ meats, in dairy, cottage cheese is an especially good source of vitamin K2, and you'll get some in eggs. The absolute champion, the best source of vitamin K2, is something called natto. In fact, natto is such a good source of vitamin K2, it's really where a lot of supplements get their vitamin K2 from. Natto is a fermented soybean product, tastes like crap, really. I hate the taste of natto, but it is a good source of vitamin K, vitamin K2. Vitamin K is located in foods is in the part of foods that I call the cholesterol complex. I've never really heard anybody talk about the cholesterol complex. And the cholesterol complex is always going to be found in foods that your doctor tells you not to eat. How do you like that? The cholesterol complex is also in foods that are prime building and growth and repair foods. And I always say this all the time, but because we're in such a hypnotic trance about cholesterol, I got to keep saying this to you guys. Cholesterol is your friend. Love cholesterol. Cholesterol is a prime building substance. Foods that contain cholesterol, like eggs and organ meats and dairy, are prime building foods. Building means growth. Building means repair. Building means anti-aging. We seem to be obsessed with anti-aging in this country, and we're missing out on the prime anti-aging foods. We're depriving ourselves because of stupidity, medical nonsense. We're missing out on prime building foods. Not only that, we're poisoning our building substances like cholesterol. If you listen to anyone, including your doctor, who tells you not to eat cholesterol-containing foods, you are depriving yourself of a major anti-aging growth and repair substance for your blood vessels, for your digestive tract, for your muscles, for your brain, especially for your brain, and for your nervous system. This cholesterol complex is very interesting. Back in the 1930s and 1940s, there was a dentist who wanted to study the relationship between modern lifestyle and dental disease. And he ended up going to various countries around the world, and he studied indigenous populations and native people who hadn't been contaminated by processed foods or any of the pollution associated with civilization. And what he found was that these indigenous people didn't have anywhere near the rates of degenerative diseases, anywhere near the rates of osteoporosis or cancer or diabetes or acne or dental diseases that we have here in the good old USA. This guy's name was Weston Price. Some of you may have heard of him. And Weston Price ended up becoming a big advocate for changing lifestyle and changing diet, changing the modern American diet to help reduce degenerative disease. He was like the godfather of using nutrition to prevent degenerative disease. This was back in the 1940s. He was way ahead of his time. He wrote a classic book about his findings called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. The guy, Weston Price, was actually called the Charles Darwin of nutrition. Anyway, in the last chapter of his book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, it's a classic. If you're interested in nutritional supplementation for degenerative disease, this is something that you might want. This is a book you might want to get. Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. So anyway, in the last chapter of his book, he writes about something he called a vitamin-like activator, a vitamin-like activating chemical, and he said that this vitamin-like substance helped the body process other nutrients. This was the early days of vitamin research. So we didn't really know a lot about vitamins. Vitamin K had just been discovered, and the first vitamin had only been discovered maybe 20 years before Dr. Price was doing his work. Today we tend to take for granted the idea of these essential nutrients and vitamins, but back in those days, this was kind of big news. The fact that you could actually take vitamins and there were actually components in foods that could change diseases and deficiencies of these substances could cause diseases. By 1945, all the vitamins had supposedly been discovered, but this was still the early days of vitamin research, and for Dr. Price to make a claim of a brand new substance that turned on or supported all these other miraculous chemicals was a really big deal. And he started testing foods for this stuff. He called the stuff Factor X. And he found that the highest concentrations of Factor X were in animal fat, butter fat, dairy foods, organ meats, eggs, especially fish eggs. Now, Dr. Price died a little bit after his book was published, and for many years, there was a lot of scientists and researchers who were just trying to find out what this mysterious Factor X was. What they knew was that this mysterious Factor X somehow activated minerals and worked very closely with vitamins A and D. Interesting. All right, hang on. We'll finish this up when we come back from our break. Take your phone calls as well at 855-660-4261. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side. We'll be back after this. back on The Bright Side. I'm your host, Pharmacist Ben. We're talking about vitamin K. Got a couple more things I want to say. We'll tie up some loose ends on vitamin K on our next Bright Side episode, and then move on to talking about the next bone-building nutrient, which is not just bone building, it's bodybuilding, because bone building is bodybuilding. If you don't have osteoporosis, this stuff is still relevant to you if you're interested in anti-aging, if you're interested in growth, if you're interested in repair, if you're interested in being healthy. So, Dr. Weston Price, he travels around the world. He's looking around for to try to check out the relationship between indigenous cultures and degenerative disease. He writes a book called Nutrition and Degenerative Disease. And he notices that cultures that don't eat Western foods, that don't eat processed foods, that don't live in an industrial kind of world, they're healthier than Americans who supposedly have the greatest healthcare system in the world. And he writes a book called Nutrition and Degenerative Disease. The last chapter of his book, he talks about something called Factor X, which he noticed was some kind of mysterious element that was in fatty foods that tended to help the body utilize other nutrients, especially minerals, more effectively. But he couldn't figure out what this was. He ends up dying, and researchers continue his work, and nobody can figure out what this mysterious Factor X is. They know that butterfat and organ meats have something in them that helps the body process minerals, that helps the body utilize vitamins A and D, but they don't know what it is. By the way, remember, vitamins A and D are cousins, and they do their work by turning on protein production. They turn on genes. Well, it turns out that this mysterious Factor X has some kind of connection with the proteins that are made by vitamin A and D. And this mysterious Factor X kind of brings these proteins to life. It animates these proteins. And on top of that, this mysterious Factor X also helps the body utilize minerals. This mysterious Factor X helps prevent cavities. This mysterious Factor X helps teeth get harder. Dr. Price actually found that butter oil and cod liver oil could suppress cavities. He found that this Factor X stuff that was in butter oil and cod liver oil actually changed the composition of saliva and made it more calcium friendly, making it easier for the teeth to absorb calcium from the saliva, preventing dental decay and preventing cavities. You can see this Factor X is pretty darn important stuff. Well, guess what? As it turns out, this Factor X is now believed to be nothing more than what I'm calling the cholesterol complex. That is vitamins K, vitamins A, vitamins D, phospholipids, all of these substances that we've been talking about now, that I've been talking about for years, that are important for growth and repair and building and anti-aging. The cholesterol complex, as it turns out, is more than likely what Dr. Price was calling Factor X. Cholesterol complex is vitamin A, D, it's lecithin, which is an emulsifier for vitamin A and D. It's cholesterol and forms of cholesterol. This is the cholesterol complex. This is Factor X, and it is probably the single most important substance that you could ever eat for growth, repair, anti-aging. Everything we like about being alive is associated with this cholesterol complex, or if you like, Factor X. It is key biological stuff, and you tell that to the next bonehead medical professional who tells you to throw out your egg yolks because they have cholesterol in them. All right, there's much more to talk about. We'll finish this up on our next program. And I think it's time to hit our phones. 855-660-4261. Yesterday, at the end of the program, we talked to a guy who, where is this gentleman here, who was telling us about something called serapeptase. And I told Eric in Pennsylvania to call back. Eric, are you there?
Hey, Ben, yes.
Hey, thanks for calling back, man. So serapeptase, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so here's the deal. Now, I'm not sure how you're getting. What makes you think it's a chelating agent? First of all, let me tell you. Let's tell the listeners about chelation. When we talk about chelation, we talk about calcification. Yesterday, I mentioned how chelation therapy is something you can use to prevent calcification. Chelation means it's kind of a magnetic attraction. To chelate something is to magnetically attract it. If you've heard of chelated minerals at the vitamin store, these are minerals that have been magnetically attracted to some kind of biological element and makes the minerals easier for the body to absorb. Chelation therapy magnetically attracts calcium and other minerals out of the body. Yesterday I said how oral chelation may be a problem because you can magnetically attract good minerals out of your body, but intravenous chelation is very effective for pulling calcium out of loose tissues and helping reduce this whole process of calcification. And Eric called and mentioned that chelation can be a little bit harsh, and I can see what he's saying. But Eric, you were talking about serrapeptase as being a chelating agent, and I'm not sure how that would work. Are you positive it's a chelating agent?
The way I understood when you were talking about the chelation therapy, I thought you mentioned that for specifically in that instance. I didn't know you were talking about it in general. I thought you were talking about that would be one of the most effective things to clear out the calcification of the arteries for people that have, arterial sclerosis.
But how does serrapeptase fit into that?
Serrapeptase is actually the most effective way to clean out the arteries and all the cardiovascular system, in addition to any kind of fibrin,
right,
and whatnot.
This is how enzymes work. Enzymes work by clearing out protein clots, and they're very effective that way, although whether or not serrapeptase or any other enzyme gets past the digestive tract, I'm not convinced about that. I don't know. I just haven't seen anything. I've seen some proteolytic enzymes can bypass the digestive tract, especially if you don't take them with meals. Do you know for a fact that serrapeptase can get through the digestive system?
Yeah, because, I read a book by Robert Redfern called The Miracle Enzyme.
All right. Did he talk about serrapeptase?
Yeah, it's a whole study on serrapeptase, and
okay.
I mean he has his serrapeptase in like a special capsule. It's not enteric coated, but it bypasses the stomach.
Got it. Okay, so now the serrapeptase, it doesn't work as a chelating agent, though. It clears out clots, and that makes sense because it's an enzyme, and enzymes are great for doing that. Proteolytic enzymes, protein-dissolving enzymes, but it's not a chelating agent, correct?
Correct, but if a person, I wanted to mention that if a person wanted to just specifically find a most effective way to clean out their arterial system, and the serrapeptase is the most effective, better than chelation.
Better than chelation therapy. All right, chelation therapy, the way chelation therapy works to clear out arteries is it prevents calcification, and calcification is associated with cholesterol plaques. So by preventing that calcification, you can lower the formation or reduce the formation of these plaques. That's how chelation therapy will reduce plaques. Serrapeptase would have a completely different mechanism. I was a little confused. I thought you were talking about it as a chelating agent, but thank you so much for clearing that up, buddy. Anything else we can help you with?
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, I was wondering maybe you could kind of question and bring for an interview the Robert Redfern who wrote the book.
All right, I would love to do that. Do you know how to get a hold of him?
That would be interesting. Well,
you don't know how to get a hold of him, do you?
Yeah, he has a website with his name, Robert Redfern.
All right.
It's not Redford, it's Redfern.
Redfern,
like
got it.
Yeah.
Got it, I'll look into that.
Search serrapeptase and his name, you'll definitely find it.
Good deal. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you bringing that up. Take care, man. All right, Todd in Texas, welcome to the right side. What's up, buddy?
Hi, I appreciate everything you do, Ben. 3 days ago, my father had a heart attack, a stroke.
Okay.
And I just wanted to talk about...
we can take care. I'll give you some good tips. Hang tight, because we got to take a break, Todd, okay? Hang on. We'll come back after this. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side on the Genesis Communication Network.
America's #1 source for independent talk radio for over a decade. We are the GCN Radio Network.
All right, we're back on the bright side. I am Pharmacist Ben. We are talking to Todd in Texas. You there, Todd?
Yes.
Okay, so your dad, you said, had a stroke. Did they say what kind of stroke it was? Was there any bleeding?
It was ischemic.
It was ischemic, okay.
Blood clot, but it had blood inside it.
Okay, got it. All right, well, here's the deal. The most important thing you could do for a stroke victim I'll tell you about supplements here in a minute, but the most important thing you can do for anybody who has a stroke is you got to reduce any kind of stress, physiologic stress that the body is under. That means that the most important physiologic stress is going to be through the digestive system. The less he eats, the better off he's going to be as long as he gets his nutrition. That's number one. As we've said so many times in this program, eating means inflammation. Inflammation is a major stressor, especially if blood is not circulating as it should. So eating less food, and especially avoiding food that causes any kind of digestive distress or problems. Make sense so far?
Yes.
Okay, that's number one. You want to think energy with a stroke. When somebody has a stroke, it is absolutely vital that all of the body's energy resources are mobilized towards recovery, towards healing. And that means anything that puts a burden on the body has to be relieved, has to be eliminated. Food is the biggest culprit. Anoxia or hypoxia, which means low blood oxygen, is another big problem I would have in practicing deep breathing techniques. I'll get into supplements here in a second. These are non-supplemental strategies that are very important, not just for stroke victims, for everybody. Avoiding problem foods. This is a very important point, by the way, guys. When somebody has a stroke, that's a dramatic manifestation of a body in breakdown, but we're all in breakdown to a certain extent. So having a stroke or recovery from a stroke or using nutritional or other strategies for dealing with a stroke are going to be the same kind of things that we all have to do. It's just that your dad obviously has to. It's more important that your dad does it because he's got some damage going on. So number one, reducing the load on the digestive system, avoiding problem foods, eating less foods. Probiotics would also be very helpful. Anything he could do to support the digestive system. Digestive enzymes will give him two benefits. Number one, they'll help clear his blood, as we talked about with our last caller. And number two, they'll help him digest his food. That's the second thing I'd be doing. I'd be focusing on fat absorption as well, using bile salts, betaine HCl, pancreatin, lecithin. All of these can help him process and utilize fatty vitamins, which are especially important for the circulatory system. And then supplements. There's a lot of great supplements. Coenzyme Q10 is a must-have, an absolute must-have for all cardiovascular issues. I'd be using 200 milligrams or so of the oil-soluble capsule. Magnesium, same way, must-have for all cardiovascular health issues. Get on the Osteomag if you're using longevity products, 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams a day. Make sure he's getting some sunshine to get his vitamin D. Make sure he's using vitamin E. 400 international units of the mixed tocotrienol form is the best way to go. And then make sure he's getting enough vitamin C. I'd be just mega dosing on vitamin C of 10,000 milligrams. That's 10 grams, 2 teaspoons of the vitamin C powder a day. I like the powder better than the pills. It's more cost effective. But you want to sip on that vitamin C. Have your dad sip on that vitamin C all day long. Of course, the Beyond Tangy Tangerine is absolutely critical for anybody dealing with any kind of recovery issues because of its water solubility. It gets nutrients right into the system. And it's also a great source of the B complex, which is also very helpful for brain health issues and cardiovascular health issues, especially niacin. You may actually even want to throw in 100 milligrams of timed release niacin with your Beyond Tangy Tangerine. So many other things. I don't want to marginalize the importance of vitamin K or vitamin D. They're also important. Of course, essential fatty acids are also going to be important. All the fatty nutrients, the essential fatty acids and the fatty vitamins should be taken with all those fat absorption support nutrients and support supplements that I just told you about, and also with fatty meals, and that'll increase his absorption. So you got the Beyond Tangy Tangerine, magnesium, coenzyme Q10, vitamin E, the B complex, Beyond Tangy Tangerine, Osteomag. You got a lot of stuff you could do, but probably the single most important thing you could do is reduce the load or the work that the body has to do, especially the digestive work it has to do, so that it can mobilize all its resources towards recovery. Okay?
Okay, and they said they wanted to put him on Plavix when he gets out, and I don't.
You know what I'm going to tell you about that, but that's something you got to decide. Plavix is an awful drug.
I want to know what to do instead of that.
It's not like instead. Plavix is a blood thinning drug. Now, I don't know what your dad's medical condition is. It may be that he's in an emergency state and he needs some kind of emergency measure like a drug. I hate drugs, but there's times in an emergency where you need them. Now, if he doesn't have an emergency condition, then keeping digestive enemies out of his system will reduce clotting. Clotting is a sign that blood is getting poisoned through the digestive tract. Breathing will thin the blood. Oxygen is a great blood thinner, guys. Under conditions of low oxygen, the blood clots. So just breathing deeply Practicing deep breathing techniques is a great way to thin the blood. Vitamin E is a wonderful blood thinner. Omega-3 fatty acids, another wonderful blood thinner. Heck, water is a great blood thinner. So these are all ways that you can thin the blood without Plavix, but I can't tell you not to do the Plavix because I don't know what your dad's condition is.
It's high blood pressure.
Well, there's ways to deal with that as well. Everything I told you, all the supplements I told you about is for the stroke and breathing and reducing physiologic stress and eliminating digestive stressors will lower his blood pressure.
Great.
Okay, buddy? Good luck, man. God bless you and your dad. I hope everything works out. Take care, Todd. Okay, let's see. Nancy in Texas. Oh, Nancy. What's up, Nancy?
Hi.
You called.
I did.
Real quick, tell the listeners what you told me yesterday about fasting. I thought it was so cute.
Well, yeah, I had never really fasted before without having headache and gotten sick and everything, but with the BTT and plenty of water, I fasted for, 4 days. 4 days, and it was great. I had so much energy. I've never felt better in my life.
Isn't that amazing?
And when I started eating again, I noticed that it bogs the body down.
It's amazing, right?
Food, because your body has to work so hard to digest food.
And the cutest thing I thought yesterday when I talked to you yesterday, the cutest thing you said was you didn't even want to stop fasting, right? You didn't want to eat again. That's what happens.
I want to know how to fast for a month like that guy that you had on the program.
Well, that feeling that you had where you didn't want to eat, you just tap into that pleasure, that sensation of lightness that you get when you fast, and you can do it for 30 days. You guys, we have a $1 trillion food industry that milks us like a farmer milks cows. And so when we go drive past McDonald's and we see those golden arches and we feel like we need French fries or whatever it is that we're addicted to, it's because we've been implanted with these messages, these hypnotic subliminal messages that tell us to go eat, even though it's not in our health interest. This is twisted and perverted and anti-humanity, this manipulation of our drives and desires, but we can override it through consciousness and through awareness. And that's why I've been talking about fasting for so long. Thank you so much for sharing that, Nancy. Nancy, by the way, for the listeners, Nancy and I have been talking on the phone now for a couple of weeks. Nancy has some inflammatory health problems. And if you have any kind of inflammatory health issues, and most health issues are inflammatory, when you fast, you will feel better. If you have autoimmune diseases, when you fast, you will feel better. If you have cancer, you can starve the cancer because when you eat, you are feeding your tumors. I'm telling you guys, it's so simple. Health is not complicated. We have made it complicated, or it has been made complicated for us by evil shamans who manipulate us, who twist us around like Gumbies to extract our life force and then throw us out like yesterday's trash. And it is so rude and it is so offensive, but we don't have to participate in something as simple as fasting. Refusing to eat the corporate swill can make a huge, huge difference. All right, David in California, got about a minute. What's going on, my man?
Okay, I just wondered if you knew any maybe possible solutions for a friend of mine who's having severe grand mal seizures.
Sure. I got a great solution for you. It's called the ketogenic diet. And it's been a solution for epilepsy and seizures since the 1920s or even before. Hippocrates, the Greek physician, talked about fasting for epilepsy in the year 0, basically. So we've known about the ketogenic diet and fasting for dealing with seizures for a long time. Google the ketogenic diet, which is a high protein, or they call it moderate protein. I call it high protein, a high fat, low carbohydrate diet. It's very, very effective for the ketogenic diet. There's even hospitals that are for epilepsy or seizures. There's even hospitals that are using the ketogenic diet. Fasting can also help. K as in kangaroo, E as in Edward, T as in Tom, O as in Oscar, G as in gorilla, E as in Edward, N as in Nancy, I as in igloo, C as in cat. Ketogenic diet. And that's all the time we have, David. Call back Monday. We'll get you some more tips. The B vitamins are also very important for all brain health issues. All right. Sorry if we left you on hold. Got a bunch of calls today. So give us a call back on Monday. If you were left on hold, just tell our call screener that we left you on hold and we'll get you up. We'll take you first up. I am Pharmacist Ben. Thanks so much for listening, friends. Have a wonderful, beautiful day. We will talk to y'all later. Bye for now.